There's a moment every woman faces, one that feels confusing, unfair, and strangely powerful at the same time. It's the moment you stop trying with a man, and suddenly, the entire dynamic shifts. The moment you stop giving him your energy, stop repeating yourself, stop showing effort, stop checking your phone, and all at once, he starts to feel something he thought he'd never feel, the possibility of losing you. Men don't react to your words. They react to your absence. They don't chase when you explain what you want. They chase when they feel they might never get it again. And the truth most women never learn is this: no contact is not silence. No contact is psychology. It is the art of letting a man experience the emotional consequences of taking you for granted. It is the moment he believes you are done, and the moment he realizes he doesn't want you to be. Because here's the secret. Men do not chase women who chase them. Men chase the woman who becomes the one thing he can't fully predict. The woman whose energy shifts, whose presence disappears, whose standards rise silently without warning. When you pull back, a man's mind activates in ways he cannot control. He begins wondering where your attention went. He begins replaying the last moments you shared. He begins noticing the conversations he ignored. He begins feeling the emotional vacuum your silence created. At first, he'll pretend it doesn't bother him. He'll act calm. He'll act unbothered. He might even act relieved. But male psychology always follows the same pattern. The moment he feels the emotional gap, he begins trying to close it. Not because you begged, not because you demanded anything, but because silence forces him to confront something no man likes to admit. You mattered more than he showed. No contact is powerful because it attacks the male ego and awakens the male instinct at the same time. When a woman stops reaching out, a man's mind spirals through questions he never asked before. Is she talking to someone else? Did she get tired of me? Why isn't she trying anymore? Did I just lose her? These questions become discomfort. Discomfort becomes curiosity. Curiosity becomes fear. Fear becomes pursuit, and pursuit becomes chase. But here's the real magic. You're not using no contact to punish him. You're using it to reset the polarity, to shift from being the woman who overgives into the woman he must now earn. And when he senses that shift, everything changes. His behavior changes. His effort changes. His tone changes. His attention changes. A man who once took you for granted can become the man who chases you the hardest, if you understand the psychological triggers behind no contact. In this video, you're about to learn the exact secrets behind why no contact works on the male mind, the triggers that make him crave your presence again, and the unnoticed behaviors that make a man realize you're slipping away. You're not chasing anymore. You're becoming unforgettable. Let's dive in. Section 1. The power of emotional absence. When he feels the gap you left behind. The first and most important reason no contact works on men is because it forces them to confront something they normally avoid, the emotional gap your presence used to fill. Most women don't realize how much space they occupy in a man's life until they remove themselves from it. Not physically, emotionally. Because men don't chase the woman who is always available. They chase the woman whose absence interrupts their comfort. Men operate on emotional delay. When you care, they don't feel it deeply. When you give, they don't process it fully. When you show effort, they assume it will always be there. But when the energy stops, when your message is slow, when your presence vanishes, when you no longer show the same warmth, his emotional brain shifts instantly. Suddenly, the comfort he relied on is gone. The attention that inflated his ego is missing. The connection he took for granted becomes silent, and silence for a man is not peaceful. It is alarming. At first, he tries to rationalize it away. She's just busy. She'll text later. She's probably tired. This is the stage where his ego protects him from the discomfort of emotional loss. But the longer your absence continues, the more cracks appear in that armor. He starts wondering if something changed, if someone else is getting your attention, if you lost feelings, if he pushed too far. These thoughts are not soft. They hit him in places he rarely admits exist. This psychological shift happens because men are territorial with emotional connection. Even if he wasn't fully committed, he felt ownership over the version of you who cared. Losing that version feels like losing control. And control is the foundation of male confidence. When he no longer knows where he stands with you, he begins questioning his value, his behavior, and his decisions. But here's the deeper truth. Men do not miss your presence. They miss the feeling of being wanted that your presence created. When you pull away, that feeling disappears. And for the first time, he has to confront whether he truly valued you or simply valued your attention. This is the emotional discomfort that turns into longing. No contact makes a man see you through a different lens. Instead of being the woman who always reached out, you become the woman he can no longer easily access. This scarcity reawakens his primal instincts. Men chase what feels rare. Men desire what feels uncertain. Men pursue what they fear losing. Your emotional absence flips the dynamic completely. He goes from being in control to being in question, from assuming you'll be there to wondering if you're slipping away, from feeling secure to feeling threatened. And in that transition, something powerful happens. He begins to feel the loss of you, not just the loss of your attention. This is the foundation of no contact. This is why it works. This is how you make him chase, by letting him feel what life is like without your emotional presence anchoring him. Section 2. The uncertainty. Trigger. When he can't read you anymore, he starts wanting you more. One of the most powerful psychological effects no contact has on men is the activation of uncertainty. Most men operate with quiet confidence when they feel they understand a woman's emotional position. When he believes you like him, he relaxes. When he assumes you'll respond, he slows down. When he knows you care, he feels safe, sometimes too safe. But the moment your energy shifts and he can no longer read you, his internal world changes dramatically. Male psychology thrives on clarity, not emotional depth, not communication, clarity. He wants to know where he stands, what you feel, and what he can expect. Even if he pretends he doesn't care, he relies on predictable emotional patterns from you. When those patterns break, when you stop reaching out, when your tone changes, when your enthusiasm fades, his mind enters a state of cognitive discomfort, and men hate that feeling more than heartbreak itself. No contact takes away the one thing his ego depended on: certainty. Suddenly, he can't predict your behavior. He doesn't know whether you're upset, bored, or done with him. He doesn't know if you replaced him or simply outgrew him. He doesn't know if you're emotionally detached or just busy. He doesn't know anything. And the male brain spirals when faced with emotional blindness. This uncertainty doesn't just make him curious, it makes him restless. Restlessness becomes tension. Tension becomes desire. Desire becomes pursuit. Because a man will always chase the woman he cannot figure out. Men don't fall for the woman who explains everything. They fall for the woman who makes them feel something. And nothing makes a man feel more than uncertainty, especially when it comes from the one woman he believed he had figured out. Your silence becomes a puzzle. Your absence becomes a question. Your emotional shift becomes a challenge. And here's the truth most women overlook. Men love challenges. Not because they are naturally ambitious, but because challenges validate their worth. When you stop showing interest, you trigger his competitive instinct, not against other men, but against himself. His ego demands that he regain the emotional position he once held. His pride pushes him to re-establish certainty. His curiosity forces him to analyze everything he did wrong. He begins replaying your last conversation. He starts remembering the things you said. He reassesses moments where he was distant. He feels guilt for the effort he didn't give. He worries he may have pushed you away without realizing it. And this internal pressure becomes unbearable over time. Because the question haunting him isn't, "Does she still like me?" The question is, "Did I just lose a woman who was actually good for me?" Once that question enters his mind, it grows, it deepens, it multiplies, and the only way he can silence it is by seeking contact again. But this time, not out of comfort, out of fear, desire, and uncertainty, blending into one powerful emotional force. This is why your silence is louder than any message you could send. This is why he starts missing you harder, sooner, and deeper. This is why he begins to chase. No contact doesn't make him insecure. It makes him aware of your value, aware of your absence, aware of the possibility that he misjudged you, and aware that you may no longer be waiting. When a man can't read you anymore, he stops playing games and starts paying attention. Section 3. The ego check. When he realizes you're no longer emotionally dependent on him. If uncertainty is the spark that wakes him up, the ego check is the moment he actually feels the loss. This is the point in no contact where everything shifts inside him, because he finally realizes something he never thought would happen. You stopped needing him. Nothing impacts a man more than the disappearance of emotional dependence. Not beauty, not effort, not messages, not even love. It's the moment he sees that your world is no longer orbiting his attention. Your emotions aren't tied to his responses. Your day isn't shaped around his presence. Your happiness isn't influenced by what he gives or doesn't give. He feels this shift before he understands it. He senses it before he can explain it. He notices it before he can admit it. And that sensation hits him in the core of his ego. Men love being needed. It makes them feel strong, valuable, desired, relevant. But when the emotional need disappears, one of two reactions happens, and both work in your favor. Reaction 1. His ego feels threatened. He thought he knew his position in your life. He thought he was the one deciding the pace. He thought he had time to come and go. But now, you're no longer waiting, hoping, accommodating, or initiating. You're living. You're calm. You're centered. You're emotionally unavailable in a way he didn't expect. This forces him into a self-reflective panic. Was I too distant? Did she finally get tired of me? Why doesn't she care anymore? Did someone else replace my position? Did she realize she deserves more? These thoughts shake his confidence, not because he lost you, but because he lost the version of himself he believed he was in your story. Reaction 2. His desire increases. Men chase where they feel displaced. When they sense they're losing emotional territory, they instinctively try to reclaim it, not out of dominance, but out of longing. Your emotional independence becomes magnetic. Your silence becomes attractive. Your calmness becomes intriguing. Your self-focus becomes irresistible. Why? Because feminine detachment is the most powerful shift a man can experience. When a woman stops needing him, she becomes a woman he wants. When a woman stops trying, she becomes a woman he values. When a woman stops chasing, she becomes the woman he chases. This ego check also forces him to reevaluate his behavior. He starts seeing your past effort differently. He begins appreciating what you gave. He recognizes the emotional space you held for him. He realizes you were more present than he ever acknowledged. And that realization leads him to something he rarely admits. He pushed away a woman who actually cared, and now she's no longer there to reassure him. This emotional awakening is the turning point. It's where curiosity becomes longing, where fear becomes motivation, and where desire becomes pursuit. Because once a man realizes you're no longer emotionally dependent on him, He finally understands that he is the one who stands to lose something real. This is when he starts reaching out. This is when he starts noticing the little things. This is when he becomes intentional. This is when the chase begins. Not because you manipulated him, but because you freed yourself. Section 4. The replacement. Fear. When he realizes another man could take the position he took for granted. If there is one emotional shift that transforms a man's curiosity into full pursuit, it is this moment. The moment he realizes that your life is moving forward without him, and that another man could easily step into the emotional space he once believed belonged to him. This fear is not about jealousy in its childish form. It's not about competition for attention. It is something far deeper, far more primal, and far more revealing about how men truly think. A man can handle your disappointment. He can handle your silence. He can even handle your distance, for a while. But what he cannot handle is the idea that you may no longer be accessible to him. When your energy shifts and your emotional presence disappears, the male mind starts imagining scenarios he never cared about before. He begins wondering who you're spending your time with. He thinks about the men who admire you, even if you never noticed. He replays every memory of your loyalty, your effort, your warmth, and now he feels the weight of losing a woman with real value. This fear emerges quietly at first. He notices your confidence. He sees your glow returning. He sees you engaging with the world again, smiling, posting, living. Without saying a word, you communicate something powerful. You are no longer emotionally anchored to him, and you are no longer waiting. This triggers a deep instinct in men, the instinct to reclaim what feels lost. Not out of dominance, but out of emotional survival. Every man has a moment where he suddenly realizes that another man could appreciate the things he once ignored. Another man could give you the attention he withheld. Another man could offer stability, affection, consistency, and presence. Another man could admire the qualities he failed to see fully. This realization hits him with a mix of regret and urgency. He begins to compare himself, not to other men, but to the version of himself he was when he had your attention. And for the first time, he feels small in that comparison. He feels the gap between who he was and who he should have been. This creates emotional discomfort that pushes him out of his passive state and into the beginning of genuine pursuit. Men don't chase because they want to win you back. They chase because they fear losing the version of themselves that existed when you were present in their life. Your absence forces him to picture you with someone else, even if it's only in his imagination. And imagination, for a man, is far more powerful than reality. He may not see you with another man, but the possibility alone is enough to awaken his attachment. The idea that you could be valued by someone better than him strikes at the core of his ego and his emotions. But the beauty of no contact is this. You never had to show another man. You never had to post anything suggestive. You never had to play games or manufacture jealousy. Your emotional detachment alone sends the message that your world is open again. And a man who once believed you were his emotional home suddenly realizes that home now has an open door, one he no longer controls. This fear is what pushes him to act differently. He becomes more attentive, more communicative, more vulnerable, more intentional. Not because you pressured him, but because losing you became a reality he can no longer ignore. No man wants to be replaced by someone who appreciates the woman he once undervalued. No man wants to watch another man benefit from the softness he refused to cherish. No man wants to see another man hold the woman he failed to hold properly. And so, in the quiet absence you created, the chase begins from a place he never expected. The fear that another man might take the place he thought he didn't have to protect. Section 5. The surrender point. When he realizes he can't control the outcome and finally steps into genuine pursuit. There comes a moment in every man's emotional journey during no contact when his mindset shifts completely. It is the moment he stops trying to predict your reactions, stops trying to protect his ego, and stops convincing himself that he doesn't care. This moment is called the surrender point, the point where he realizes that he no longer controls the outcome, and that the only way forward is to pursue you with honesty, intention, and vulnerability. Men are conditioned to believe they always have time. Time to decide, time to commit, time to come back, time to fix their mistakes. But no contact breaks this illusion. Your distance, your silence, your emotional growth, all of it shows him one truth he cannot escape. You are no longer waiting. The version of you he once thought he owned is gone, replaced by a woman who values herself, respects her boundaries, and no longer negotiates for love. This realization strips him of the false confidence he once had. His internal dialogue changes from casual assumptions to urgent questions. What if she really moved on? What if she doesn't want me anymore? What if she found someone healthier? What if I waited too long? What if I lose her for good? These thoughts create a psychological pressure that his ego cannot protect him from. He begins to feel responsible for the distance. He starts acknowledging the moments he was complacent. He sees how he withdrew effort without realizing its impact. He recognizes the conversations he ignored, the emotions he dismissed, the opportunities he wasted. And this self-awareness becomes the catalyst for transformation. This is the point where men stop playing games. Your silence forces him into emotional honesty. He stops trying to appear strong or unaffected because the cost of pretending becomes too high. Pride becomes a burden. Distance becomes uncomfortable. Avoidance becomes impossible. He realizes that the only way to regain access to you is by showing up differently. He begins reaching out with sincerity, not strategy. His messages feel warmer, more intentional, more open. He initiates conversations instead of waiting for you to do it. He expresses emotions he once hid behind sarcasm or detachment. He brings effort to the table without being asked. He tries to re-enter your life with a gentleness that did not exist before. This shift happens because he understands something he didn't before. You are not chasing him anymore. You are choosing peace, growth, and standards he now has to rise to if he wants to be part of your life again. And the most powerful part? No contact didn't change him. Your transformation changed him. Your emotional independence, your calmness, your silence, your glow. These became the mirror he was forced to face. And in that reflection, he saw the man he had been, and the man he needed to become if he wanted a second chance. The surrender point is the moment he realizes that the outcome is no longer in his control. He cannot predict your response, cannot assume your interest, cannot rely on your old patterns. The only path forward is genuine pursuit, one rooted in effort, accountability, and intention. This is when he starts chasing, not because he fears losing you, but because he finally recognizes your worth. And recognition born from absence is far more powerful than desire born from comfort. The man who once took you for granted becomes the man who now fights for the version of you he never thought he'd lose. And that pursuit is real. In the end, everything about no contact, every shift, every silence, every moment of distance, is not about punishing a man, manipulating him, or making him afraid. It is about reclaiming your power, your peace, and your emotional clarity. It is about stepping out of a dynamic that drained you and stepping back into the woman you were meant to be. Confident, calm, self-respecting, and centered. Because the truth is simple. A man does not chase the woman who gives everything. A man chases the woman he feels honored to receive anything from. When you pull away with intention, something remarkable happens. You stop negotiating your value. You stop forcing connections. You stop over-explaining your worth. You stop pouring into someone who is offering you drops in return. And in that moment, quiet, unannounced but powerful. You shift from being the woman who hoped to being the woman he now fears losing. This journey through no contact is not about making him suffer. It is about letting him see himself without the comfort of your emotional presence. It is about allowing him to feel the absence of the woman he underestimated. It is about giving him the space to realize that the love, softness, patience, and loyalty you offered were not ordinary. They were rare. And rare things are only appreciated once they are gone. He goes through every psychological stage, not because you forced him, but because your silence showed him truth. You don't need him to complete you. You don't chase someone who won't meet you. You don't lower yourself to be chosen. You don't fight for someone who won't fight too. You rise. And when you rise, he feels it. When you detach, he notices. When you heal, he regrets. When you glow, he remembers. When you move forward, he is drawn backward, toward the woman he once believed would never walk away. This is the power of emotional independence. This is the essence of feminine strength. This is what makes a man stop running from intimacy and start running toward you. And even if he comes back, and many men do, the real victory is not in winning him. The real victory is in winning yourself. Because the woman you became during no contact is not the same woman who started it. She is more grounded, more centered, more aware, and more protective of her heart. She no longer gives to be chosen. She gives because she chooses. She no longer waits to be valued. She values herself first. She no longer fears losing a man. She fears losing her peace. And that is the shift that changes everything. A man may chase you once he realizes what he lost, but the empowered woman knows she will never lose herself again in the process. No contact didn't just make him chase. It made you evolve. And evolution is the most attractive, undeniable force a woman can possess. When you choose yourself, he has no choice but to recognize your worth. Whether he rises to meet it, or watches you walk into a better life without him, that is his journey, not yours.